Hello and welcome to another one of our episodes and segments for our podcast with Retirement Living Associates and Retirement Resource Guide. Today is a very exciting day. I have gotten the time with Perry Aycock in his new role and some other aspects of his career. He and I have overlapped for many, many years, but we're happy to be with him today. He works with both here at Cedars of Chapel Hill where we are and with Longevity. So Perry, thanks for joining us. It's good to see you again. Long time no see.
Amen.
Good to see you.
Pleasure.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming over.
Tell us a little bit about how you got involved in the senior industry. I know that's a long time ago like it is for me, but just how long? Tell me about that.
It's more than 20 years, I'll put it that way. And the first place I worked is the other side of Tobacco Road, like over near that dark blue place that we won't mention.
Yes.
Down the street.
Yes.
Crowsdale Village was starting as a community and it had a poor start and they were restarting it. And I was part of the team that worked on getting that started.
Yeah, I remember all that. They stopped construction once. So
exactly.
Certainly have corrected all that though. It's a great place.
It is a great community. It's one of the best values in the state. Crowsdale's done a great job.
Yeah.
So it was fun to be a small part of that. Then I moved to Virginia and worked at a Westminster Canterbury, and they have like 6 of those up there.
Yes.
They were doing an expansion then of about 164 residences. They're doing another one now of 226 residences that are right on the Chesapeake Bay. It's one of the prettiest views I've ever seen at a community.
That's great.
And then people thought out of those 2, deep wells of experience that I could be a consultant, and I was off and running in that world.
That's good.
And so I've done that ever since, pretty much.
Good. Well, so tell me a little bit. I know we're at Cedars, and so we'll talk a good bit today about the equity model, but I'm curious, as you have a lot of experience, as do I, between the equity model versus rental versus entrance fee, and probably some hybrids of those.
Yeah.
But what do you see as the pros and cons for a person shopping, a person looking at this, what they're thinking?
I think rental communities are certainly the majority of what's been built in the last 20 years. If you look around, there are 3 or 4 of these equity models in North Carolina now, depending on where in the process you want to count them. There's 3 or so new entrance fee models, but the rest of them are rentals. So it's half of what's been built in the last 20 years are rentals. I think rentals are good for folks because I think a lot of folks don't know what the communities are and they feel uncomfortable with the bigger upfront investments for either the entrance fee or the equity model. And the rental model takes a little of that away. If you're selling your home, you usually have made a good return on that after living there for 30 odd years usually. And the rental model lets you move somewhere, get rid of the burden of the home, have that full continuum of care as a safety net, and see if you like somewhere. I think especially with all the folks that are moving to North Carolina, 100,000 a year.
I was going to say that. I thought early on in the rental world, I thought it was a better solution for people relocating.
Yeah.
It has grown, as you well know, beyond just relocations to it can be where I've lived for 40 years, but I still like that model. So.
Yeah. I think, so those are good. And I think they're good in that they help those folks that are moving from other places. They help the folks that are local that aren't sure, try something. The entrance fee model is a fascinating, history to me. Mostly my view is post-Civil War, a lot of the widows from the war in the North and the South moved to these big old houses that were given to usually a church or some other group to take care of these ladies that didn't have their husbands to take care of them anymore.
That's right.
It's an interesting thing to explain to a customer, this entrance fee idea, because usually those payments at the lowest price points amortize away over a period of years, usually less than 4. And people struggle to get that through their heads, and I understand why. It's a weird concept. There's some great tax benefits. There's some good parts of it. I think the math works out in the end, but it's a hard thing to learn about at the beginning.
Yeah, I have found over my career, people understand it more quickly if I call it a prepaid rent.
It is.
And so it really is just a head start in your rent, which has probably led to the rental model coming into higher, bigger play.
Yeah.
So let's stand and walk a few minutes because we're gonna. That last one is of course equity.
Yeah, the equity model is a relatively new phenomenon that's done well. The Cypress of Hilton Head's the first one I would point to. That's probably 30 years or so old now.
Right.
You own, like all the residences you see behind us and around us here, the folks who live there own that and everything else you see. And so the condominium association adds a lot of freedom because you can move if you want to, the same as any other thing you own. You can sell it if you choose to. You can't give it to someone who wouldn't qualify to be a member,
Yes.
which is where the clubhouse and the healthcare are connected to the condominiums legally. You have to follow the retirement community regs and the real estate regs, and they overlap in that membership.
Also think it's a client base who understands, I bought my house, I owned it a long time, I'd like to buy this.
Right.
It's a mindset that's easily done again. You know?
It's so familiar. It's easier to explain in that interest fee model where you say, actuarially, you are just prepaying future rents.
Right.
If you look at the entrance fee and the monthly fee at an entrance fee community versus a rental community, there's a math formula that connects those back to each other because the actuaries would say it's all the same fee.
That's right.
Whether you're paying it now or whether you're paying it later.
That's
Here, it's a fascinating thing because the monthly fee supports it because the person who's selling the condominium is selling it to another qualified party, but there's not a lot of contribution to the operations from those turnovers like there are at the other places. But it's a fascinating model. It's easy to me to explain, and you look at that growth here in North Carolina in the last 20 years. The Cedars opened 20 years ago on Halloween Day.
Is that
we had
right?
a bunch
It's
of
been that
parties
long.
in the last
Wow.
month about celebrating that 20 years, and
Yes.
Bob Woodruff and all those other partners that did so much work and made everything happen. It's a wonderful way to give customers another choice. That's what it's about.
That's
to me.
right. That's right.
It's not right for everybody.
We've also thought in the industry it would allow people to ponder moving sooner.
Yes.
If I own it and I want it to appreciate, then having longer period of time makes more sense. So as we all know, the statement, I'm not ready to move yet, or I don't want to move to that place yet.
Right.
The equity model, I think, answers some of that. I don't know specifically, but
New always helps, as you know,
Yeah.
from the new ones that you've built. And we're fortunate we're building a small expansion right across the street
Oh,
here.
good, I didn't know
You always see, the average age of entry go down like 5, 6, 7 years
when you add.
when you build a new thing. And so the Cedars is still so young, at 20 years old, what we can see right around this beautiful lawn is the first phase, but then there are phases on behind these brick buildings that were the later phases, and the cottages were in that first phase as well. And we don't have a lot of room. Metamont's a pretty amazing
Sure.
neighborhood,
Sure.
so there's not a whole lot of land for us to go
Sure.
find.
So tell us a little bit, not beyond what's in the, just if it's not public, obviously, I'm not asking that.
Okay.
But I do know Mr. Woodruff has recently retired. Is
Yes.
that right? And so your new role here is a big role.
It is. It's special to be able to do what you love in the place you call home.
Yes.
That's the biggest appeal to me. Bob will laugh because 20 or so years ago, there was a trailer down the street here where they were selling the
Yeah.
community out of. And
I came to that.
I did too. That's where I met Bob, and he said he's been cultivating me for this job
Oh,
ever
really?
since then.
Nice.
But Bob and those guys did an amazing job, and they have a wonderful team that runs the community. Fortunately, they don't have me in that role.
Yes.
I think that was wise. So it's a job where, the renovation of the clubhouse is a big job, right? That's important, and the faster you can get that done, the better. The expansion's a big job. That's important. The sooner you get past
Yes.
that period of risk and get people moved in, the better. And then there's just learning how everything works. Like we're doing the condo board elections right now, which is a process that has the members that live here elect the people that they want to represent them, that decide whether we should renovate the clubhouse and things like that. And they were funny. They said, "Who's going to go tally the votes?" And I was like, "I'm happy to do it. Where are the votes?" I didn't even know where the votes were.
Yeah.
Here's where the votes are.
Wow.
And we have online voting now too. We didn't have as much trouble with the election as the one.
Yeah, don't agree.
That's about all we need to do.
No
on that
hanging
one.
chads.
No hanging chads. It seems
good.
quite clear.
That's good.
And we'll have a meeting later this week where we'll bring in the new board members for that and update everybody on all the progress that we're making there.
Yeah, that's good. And that board has a lot of voice. I don't mean entrance fee and rental boards don't,
Right.
but it is a different level. As homeowner is different level than management is very open to your input. So
Yeah.
I think that's a plus also, as residents want to have more and more involvement and more input.
I feel like, when I'm sitting with folks at new communities, if you're starting a new entrance fee or rental or equity community, people ask those questions in that setting more and more, those 70-year-olds or younger that are coming to us. There's the progress on we're making the bar bigger.
Yeah,
Imagine
I see that.
Yeah.
Cutting concrete today.
I think that's steel.
Oh.
Anyway, sorry for the noise. It's fascinating, and I do think it is a little bit more control. You can move, you possibly make money when you move. That makes it easier to vote with your feet if you don't like it.
Yeah.
You get to vote to control that incredibly important part of the organization that really owns everything.
Good.
So that's good too.
Talk a little bit about, switching gears on you some, I want to talk some about continuing care retirement communities were based on a continuum of care, right? Yeah. So both independent, or all three, independent, assisted, and skilled.
Right.
Memory care usually worked its way into probably the assisted part of that.
Right.
But across the country, I think it's certainly a trend that more people are staying in their apartments longer.
Yeah.
Maybe it's healthcare progress related, maybe it's all kinds of other issues, but or positive. I shouldn't say issues, I'll say positive.
Yeah.
So tell me a little bit about how much you're seeing that as you travel broader than the Triangle in North Carolina.
Yeah.
Bed utilization, especially skilled care.
It's fascinating to see how fast it's changing. Like if you do the market studies where you say, should we build a community or not? And they project how many independent living residences and healthcare residences, those numbers are dropping by plus or minus 3% a year. As you look forward, at the same time, the demographic, the baby boom's turning 79 this year, which is when that utilization usually kicks off.
That's right.
And so it's an odd time to operate a community where you go, well, traditionally we had to build, let's imagine there's 500 people that live there. We have to build 150 things to take care of those 500 people because they're going to need it.
Right.
That number's gone from 500 and 150 to more like 500 and 100 now, and it's probably going to go to 550.
Oh, you think it's going to drop from a third to a 25% or 20%?
Yeah. Basically, the 30 was the rule when I showed up.
Right.
Probably we showed up.
Yeah.
20, I think, is the national median-ish utilization number now, going down to closer to 10, maybe not all the way to 10.
Wow.
And you think about, we have a place here that's called the DuBose Center that's up on the hill. You have, a tremendous investment in the physical asset. The team is amazing, and they're like precious people. It's hard to find nurses and people like that these days.
Yeah.
So part of what I look forward and think for the Cedars and for the other organizations I get to work with is we have to be very careful about what we're doing, because if that trend has happened in a 20 or 30 year period, the buildings are supposed to last longer than that, and usually the money is supposed to be paid out longer than that. So
that's right.
How do we do that well, and how do we do home care well is really what it comes back to. Because if you look and say, somebody there needs home care, there are a lot of wonderful home care agencies that are out there, but the people that live in the communities want to see a person they know.
Yeah.
And they want to see them day after day, because those relationships between the team and the people who call the community home are part of the best.
Right. Another real battle, I'll say, or a challenge I find as management is people want to stay living near their neighbors.
Yeah.
As their needs change, they're not eager to be told or asked, you're going to need to move to a different level.
Right.
On the other hand, if you bring too much home care in, then those neighbors didn't anticipate that either.
Right.
So there is sort of an interesting thing there. I think one thing that helps that, though, is I think that as medical care has improved, people get back to a higher standard of able to live independently more than they used to. I used to see people just gradually change. Now I think they resolve something and they're back to closer where they were. So it's both, whatever you call that, it's both rules, policies, preferences, but I think it's also physically a fact that people can live independently longer.
Yeah. So. Think about like when we were younger, how old we thought a 65-year-old was.
Yeah, that's right.
And now we think 65-year-olds are pretty young because we're closing in on 65.
That's right.
But the health and the fitness, be it mental or physical, is a lot higher for 65-year-olds or 75-year-olds or whatever it may be today. My caution to folks who are new to this or kind of figure it out is, 70 is the new 50. You know, everybody likes to say that. And
Right.
now that I'm in that band, I'm kind of happy about that. 80, I think, is still 80 for most people. If you're thinking that you want to have a plan about something like this, do your work and learn and find your place or find your solution. It doesn't have to be a place anymore before you hit 80 or the low 80s, because often that's when things begin to change such that your options get diminished. Your choices aren't as many. You know, here in Chapel Hill, there are 4 amazing communities, which, you know, for a town of 60,000, most of whom are students, is a ridiculous oversupply. Everywhere is full. Everywhere has a wait list. The healthcare is all closed by that, you know, demand, so to speak, such that if somebody calls me, and I'm sure you have the same problem, and says, hey, my mom needs something, and they don't live in a community today, they have to go to Durham.
Yeah, it's really hard to find freestanding private pay long-term cares.
That's good.
Very hard.
Right.
Yes. Yes.
So that to me is something, motivation, hopefully, for folks that are out there that are thinking about this. Like, none of these places, or that's not true. Any of these places where you feel like they are pressuring you, you can go ahead and move on to the next one. Most of the places that you're going to go have wonderful people whose job it is to teach you some of the things David teaches you all, and the podcast teaches you.
Sure.
It's an education that is not something you're going to get done in one class. I would say you need at least 3, maybe 3 classes in 3 semesters, which is pretty good compared to, you know, regular education.
Sure.
But you'll find a place. I mean, you know, here you find the people. It's just like going to a college campus. You go to Wake Forest, you go to UNC, you go to Davidson, wherever you may be. One of them is going to feel like your spot.
That's right. It's going to fit.
Keep looking until you find that. And then good luck with the 2 members of a couple. Usually are they may be aligned on which one's right, but they're not usually aligned on which one's the right time.
That goes a whole nother area. I'm not going into.
You're not going to do
Barry.
marriage counseling.
No, I'm not going to do marriage counseling today.
That's good.
So. Good. Well, thank you very much. I think that covers mostly what I wanted to talk about. I know you're going to help us with another episode, and so we'll have a few different topics. But thank you for your time. Thank you for joining us today, and I hope that this has been helpful and informative.
Good luck.